my biggest one that I keep going back to with really a lot of people is if you just include produce at every meal. So whether that's fruit or vegetables, you know, like breakfast, it makes a little bit more sense to have fruit, or maybe like if you make an omelet, like throw in like different veggies or whatever you have. And then lunch, make sure that you have a serving of vegetables, maybe even fruit. And then dinner, same thing. Like that's something that you might already be doing, but you're not paying attention to. And then you get to the end of the day, dang, I've not had any of that. And that can be a very simple change that doesn't require that much effort as well, because it might be something you're doing, but not 3 meals out of the day.
Hey, what's going on? This is Matteo and welcome to the Waterski Podcast, or welcome back to the Waterski Podcast. This podcast's goal is to promote water skiing. I'm going to do so through interviews, answering questions, providing the occasional sports psychology tips for water skiing, and just ramble around about water skiing whenever I feel like. I've been traveling quite extensively for skiing. Just got back from the Bennett Ski School, where I watched the Bayou Classic, famous collegiate tournament in the South Central region. Saw some big scores, particularly men and women jump. Wow, these collegiate kids are flying nowadays. I believe there was someone with 168 or 169 in men's jump that didn't make top 5. So the level is insane. I'm really looking forward to watch and follow the Collegiate Nationals this year, which will be in California in about 2 to 3 weeks time. So while at Bennett's, I had a chance to catch up with a great friend of mine, Brittany Greenwood, who was there competing like I was in a record tournament on Sunday. So before the tournament, we sat down and had a chance to catch up with her about her latest skiing, but also we talked a little bit about nutrition. Now, Brittany is a registered dietitian and currently works in a private practice of a cardiologist, providing nutritional advice and planning for cardiac patients. But naturally, she has a ton of knowledge about nutrition, and she's an athlete. So I wanted to pick her brain and see what simple advice she could give to the water ski world in terms of nutrition and hydration. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this chat. We laugh a lot in this one. I really had a good time talking to her on Saturday evening. Had a pleasure, to sit down and chat with her. We've been longtime friends, and I think this really transpires in the interview. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Stay tuned. More episodes to come in the next few weeks. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for giving me this interview. Welcome to the Waterski Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Good. We're here at Bennett Ski School to ski a little tournament tomorrow. How are you feeling?
Feeling all right. Still, getting back into the swing of things after Worlds in Malaysia, and starting to work completely full-time now. Work-life balance.
Yep.
It's a big part of trying to be an adult, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it is, yeah. So you were at Worlds representing the U.S. for Worlds? Nice.
Yes. That was actually my first time going to the Open Worlds, which was pretty awesome.
Nice. What do you enjoy about the experience?
I actually got to stay with Jay and Ann Bennett, and that was quite entertaining to be able to stay with them and explore with them, especially because Jay has so much experience throughout all of these events over the years. So that was really neat. And then, getting to know people that I hadn't really gotten to spend much time with, maybe because of the age difference or not really competing with them, whether it be a certain country. And then getting to see the monkeys. That was fun.
Yeah,
That was
I saw
awesome.
a lot of pictures of those. What was that all about? Like the monkeys?
So there was this part in the main city called Kuala Lumpur.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this cave, and it was it had to do with their religion, and you went up into this cave, but along the way you walked up all these beautiful stairs that were painted different colors, and all these monkeys were just hanging around. And so we were just walking up the stairs into this cave, and then they would basically attack you if you had food. It was kind of funny, but like kind of creepy at the same time.
Little intense experience there.
Yeah. So, and you knew that they were maybe a little dirty, so you're like, maybe don't touch me, but like I kind of want a picture with you. So, the give and take.
Good old selfies, to take home.
Oh yeah, I definitely got a selfie.
There you go. There you go. Listen, so Worlds, obviously, some would say the pinnacle of our sport.
Yeah.
How did you get into the sport?
Well, my parents, they both water skied growing up. My dad in Arkansas, my mom in Indiana, on public lakes. They were both one of 5, and so they would just water ski in the summers, and they ended up going to college for skiing. My dad went to NLU at the time.
Okay.
And then my mom, actually, she was in Florida, I think the University of Florida, with her sister. She didn't know that she was good enough to ski at a school on scholarship. And Monroe calls her and says, hey, we want you to come ski for us. She could jump 100 feet at the time, trick whatever, and run into 28 off. So they recruited her, and then, my parents, they met there, moved back to Arkansas, built us a lake, which is pretty cool. And then I've been skiing since I was, I guess, 3, and then competing since I was 7. So it's just part of the heritage.
Yeah. So one of those things, like when I asked Igor, when did you start skiing? He goes, I can't even remember.
Yeah, exactly. It's in your blood.
Do you remember your first set? Anything?
Oh gosh, no. But I'm sure, like, I've seen pictures of them dragging us in the yard, skiing us on the side of the boat, and just all of the like toddler pictures.
Right.
I do remember dropping my first ski, and I was so frustrated. And I think I just like swam in and walked home because I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this anymore. But of course, I ended up getting up on a slalom ski, and it was fine.
Yeah. So competing at 7, that's early.
Yeah, pretty early. Yeah, I think we're pretty fortunate in the U.S. that there's a lot of kids our age. Just growing up, we have junior development tournaments, especially in our region in the South Central, that encourages that junior skiing. So I was able to do that, and of course, you go ski with your friends. You want to keep skiing with your friends. So I think that really like helped me because I wasn't really competitive whenever I was younger. It wasn't until I got older I got that drive to be a little bit more competitive. So hanging out with the buddies, of course, like that's the best part. Like we're sitting here just hanging out, like just buds. So
what was
cool.
it? Do you remember? Because I think for everyone, sooner or later something happens to where it triggers, and all of a sudden you want it. Do you remember what it was for you?
I don't know exactly what it was that triggered, but I do remember my dad telling me after I was done with Girls 1 and I was in Girls 2, I guess I was kind of like 11 or 12, I had started jumping, and I wasn't really doing it because everybody else was doing it. I was doing it for me. And I think I kind of like found that passion through jumping, really, because I got good, and I was like, sweet, this is cool. You know, like, let's keep this going. And of course, like, I was still competing with all the other girls, like at a national level at that age. I think I won like an overall national title or whatever, and I think that was pretty cool. And then moving forward, it was just like, okay, let's do this, I'm ready to go. Yeah, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily like a specific thing. I think like maybe like maturing a bit helped.
And obviously in jump is interesting because generally jump comes at a later stage in a water skier's life, no matter when you start. So there you already have an idea of how tournaments work, what effort you have to put in.
Right.
So that's what I hear a lot from a lot of jumpers. Like, that's something for me that I decided to do and that I brought forward, right?
Yes.
Like you really have to have the skier that wants it, right?
you have to make that decision like internally. Okay, either I want to go over this ramp, or I'm just gonna, sit back here and do whatever else everybody else is doing. Like it's quite a lot of effort to throw yourself at that thing.
Yeah.
And just like day in and day out, making sure that you're having the right technique to stay safe, and then again having the right technique to propel yourself forward. So like there's a lot, and I'm not trying to discredit any of the other events, but like it's in the same for all of the other events. I think it's just always like going to be a different attitude whether which event you're in, like
it takes different challenges.
And different decisions.
And it's interesting because I mean, it's funny enough, like I'm a slalomer and you're already my second jumper in a row interview, so I'm stoked, But what were some of your breakthroughs? Like, and it doesn't have to be, I mean, it could be a win or it could be some competition or it could be something that you figured out and really brought your jump to the next level. Do you remember some of those?
My dad in college, he had recruited Mark Lane to ULM, and years later, whenever I think I was like 10 or 11, he had brought Mark to ski with us.
Yep.
And so Mark has been my coach for quite a long time. And I think that's what really like got me excited about jumping. And I think that's what really helped because he was a professional jumper. I looked up to him. And that was, that was pretty cool. So I think that helped. And I won like nationals. I broke a 10-year-old national record at like 12.
Wow.
And then record still stands, I think 10 years later. Like I think I still have it, which is actually, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So at such a young age, like having success was pretty cool. And then even this year, like I've kind of had a few years of just kind of like, okay, going through the motions. And then this year was another breakthrough. Like I just kind of dug deep and I was like, okay, what am I going to do to like get moving forward? And I PB'd by 13 feet. And it was kind of one of those things like I had it coming, but I was like, you got to put in the work to have that result. And I've been able to be in the gym in the winter and just like really hone in on my skill. And it's been pretty cool. And then like going to the Worlds, like that was pretty fun to do that and just like also be able to pay for it myself as an adult was kind of cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about like what kind of work you're doing to pay off, to be able to pay your dad. Like that's going to be our second part for sure. That's awesome. And wow, 13 feet PB. That's huge.
Yeah. My best was 163 and I had jumped it like a handful of times. And then I jumped, I don't even know what my first jump was. And then my second jump, I was like, okay, like that was a good spot on my first jump. Like, I feel like I have like, I've been practicing, I have more in me. And I was like, okay, just take it a little bit easier. Just drive through the ramp. 176. What? Okay, take me into the dock. Let's go in.
Did you go in?
Yeah, I went in. I was like, okay, that was pretty big. Like, was that real? I don't know. But it was definitely real because like the next round, or the round after, I went 170, and then even the next weekend I went 175. So that was like.
Okay, so you broke through.
Yeah, broke through finally. It's been a journey.
Yeah, of course it is. It always is, isn't it?
Always is, but it's rewarding,
So where was that? What was that 176?
That was when was that? That was in July. We actually had the junior development tournament at our house for the first time, which is pretty cool because my little brother's 11. And so he had all of his little buddies at our lake. And so my dad thought of an idea like, hey, we're going to have all these juniors here. Might as well bring in some top jumpers. So Taylor Garcia was there, Sasha, Taryn Grant, Harry Spavin, my brother, Sam, and then myself. And Taylor jumped 230. I think Taryn broke the Canadian national record with 174 or 5. Like, super awesome. And Sasha jumped really well. Sam had jumped good. And I think Harry had like a pretty solid round, or rounds over the weekend. So it was kind of cool to let the little guys know, hey, you guys can maybe do this one day, this is what you have to look up to. So
yeah, it's funny like how when I interviewed Igor Morozov last week, we did speak out of the mic about like the importance of seeing what you could become.
Right.
So like you gifted something to these kids, you know, like they saw what's possible. And do you remember anything like that for you growing up?
You know, we used to have the U.S. Open at the U.S. Nationals.
All right, right.
And I remember that being really awesome. I don't necessarily remember the women as much as the men because, of course, that's like the prime show. And then again, like Mark Lane, like he was our coach, and he would always come to our house after a pro tournament.
Right.
So he would maybe be flying in from Russia, Switzerland, you know, one of the the World Cup stops, whatever it was. So he would always be telling us about this, and he was like, you know, one day you're going to be skiing in like pretty crappy conditions,
right.
and like you got to be prepared for it, like blah blah blah, and like but you're going to still do good at it. So, you know, I think that was, but we don't have that exposure anymore, like for the younger kids. And I think like at our U.S. Nationals, we're starting to bring that back a little bit for America's Cup.
Oh yeah, the America's Cup. Yeah,
which is pretty cool. But I only really remember like the U.S. Open, Mark talking about stuff. Yeah, that's about it.
Were you one of those kids like growing up, like looking at the rankings, looking at what scores people were doing, or were you sort of like not in touch with that?
You know, I was all about my scores.
Right.
But honestly, I was maybe thinking about it like this year or last year. I had no idea what all the other girls were doing. Right. I just was so involved in, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is whatever my PB is. I'm trying to push it. And I know like that's what I have to do. It's kind of one of those things, like stay in my lane, and I'm going to be able to proceed and get better.
And that's a tough balance, right? Because on one hand, you have your plan, you're trying to work on something to get that breakthrough or that small improvement, and then on the other hand, especially now that we're all connected, you're always exposed to what everybody's doing, and sometimes that can be detrimental, right?
You know, there's this saying, comparison is the thief of happiness, and I find that true time after time. You know, if I catch myself like frustrated with my skiing, or even like at the gym, like with CrossFit, like I'll, you know, compare my numbers to someone else or compare my scores to someone else. I'm like, that doesn't matter. We're literally not even the same person. We don't have the same experiences. It doesn't matter. You know, like I need to work on what I need to work on to do and obtain my goals. Yeah. You know, and then if I'm comparing, I'm just going to be moping around. Yeah. So that's not that much fun. I'm out there to have fun.
So listen, you know, obviously huge PB. Yeah. Like, and I know it's always a combination of things, but anything that you've done differently this year that helped you to, you know, break 170 and honestly going again 170 and 175, like consistent, like making a point?
You know, I definitely attribute it to being stronger, working on my nutrition. Like that's definitely part of it. You know, I just took time and I really like evaluated each set, and it kind of goes back to like I started working this year and I didn't have this freedom to be skiing all day every day. So you know, we talk about it a lot, but like quality over quantity. If I only have one set in the day, I better make it a freaking good set. Right. Or if it's not good, still find a positive out of it. And I think that was such a valuable thing that we focused on like all summer. So I think that was really like a big turning point. And I kind of had to do that last year with my internship. Whenever I was living in New Orleans, like I would drive over to Bennett's and maybe ski once or twice a week. And that was weird for me because I wasn't used to jumping just once or twice a week. I was used to jumping every single day. Right. So definitely that quality over quantity and just being like a lot more focused in exactly what you're doing, you know, spending that energy rather than just kind of being like willy-nilly. Okay, I'm gonna go take set. I can always take another one. Like
tomorrow, maybe, you know.
Yeah, and like sure, you'll have another set, but like if you make this one a good one, like that one will probably be just as good or better. So
yeah, and I like how you said like really taking the time to evaluate and always find a positive, right? And spoiler alert that I'm gonna be doing a podcast about that, but like a lot of it is, you know, being able to analyze what you did, and as you know very well, it's finding the good when the set went bad.
Right.
finding the bad when the set went good, which is sometimes easier.
Mm-hmm.
And all those average sets that make a season, really try to tease it out and see what you can take out of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, good on you. That's a big skill, and it takes practice.
Yeah, it definitely takes practice. And I think that also comes like just maturing like as an athlete, I think I'm 25 now and I don't know when that happened, but
right.
like, shoot, I'm not 18 anymore, so definitely trying to make it worthwhile every time. So it's been a fun summer. It really has. So had Malaysia, Malibu Open, and then have beach games in Qatar.
Right.
In a couple weeks. So that'll be fun. It'll be really, really exciting to go to Qatar. That's going to be definitely a interesting experience and a definitely interesting culture. So I'm excited.
Yeah, first time in the Middle East?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. No, nice.
I guess I've just never ventured over there. It's always Europe or Asia,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, that's cool. No, there's actually, you probably know him, Aris from Greece.
Yeah.
His dad is a pilot for Emirates. So he lives in Doha. So I wonder if he's going to come and watch.
Well, he should. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Nice to see some familiar faces.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? And what's that event about? Because I've heard about it. Is it going to be jump and wakeboarding?
Yes. So it's being put on by the Olympic Committee. And it was actually supposed to be in San Diego, and I think that fell through probably a month or 2 months ago, and they brought it to Qatar. I think they had a World Cup stop there in 2007. It's kind of like in a canal.
Okay.
And so I think it's brackish water, so where the fresh and the salt water meets. But yeah, it's just jump and it's just wakeboard. They're bringing in a ramp. I think Beeman flew a ramp over there, which is actually pretty cool. JT had mentioned that at Malibu. And then they also said that they brought in a new nautique, and they're bringing like a new a wakeboard nautique as well. So it's going to be
solid.
Pretty neat.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you guys going to get some practice there?
Yeah, I think we have 1 or 2 days of practice. Prelims, finals kind of thing. I think there's 12 women's jumpers, 12 men's jumpers, and I think the same for wakeboarding as well.
Oh,
so
sweet.
Pretty cool deal. Yeah.
Do you know who else is going for the U.S.?
So Scott Ellis was supposed to go,
but
Marion got hurt at Malibu, and so he's going to stay and take care of her, which that's awesome on him. Like, gotta do what you gotta do. And then there are 2 wakeboarders that I don't know the name of, and then our team coach is actually the team coach that went for the Pan Am Games. And my dad was the U.S. manager for the Pan Am Games. So he met her and he's like, yeah, you'll like her. She's great. So I've been in contact with her a little bit. Excited to meet her and kind of get to know some wakeboarders, I guess.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Spread the love. Water sports.
I love those events, actually. Like, I've done Mediterranean Games, and you guys obviously have Pan Am Games.
Yeah, World Games. Have you been to World Games?
I've never been to World Games, but I do like those events where it's all the sports, every single kind of athlete. So you walk into, to get some lunch, and you see like a 7-foot swimmer, and you're like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, hey, I'm an athlete too.
I know you can't see me from up there, but I'm an athlete too.
They would definitely not be able to see me. Oh gosh. Yeah, it is pretty cool. I know whenever we went to Poland in 2017 for World Games, there was so many sports, and we would get done skiing because there was a really small field, and we were like, okay, let's go watch whatever we watch. I think we watched jiu-jitsu, handball, like rhythmic gymnastics. It was really neat.
That's
then
cool.
some people came and watched water skiing too, which I was thinking that's pretty sweet,
No. That's one of the fun part of those events, right? You see, like, I guess for you, like a U.S. flag of someone that you don't know about, or like, hey, what's up? I'll come to see your thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, what's going on?
Right.
That's pretty cool. It is pretty cool for sure.
Sweet. So I threw in the lunch, idea, because obviously one of the things I want to talk with you about is nutrition.
Right.
So could you just give us a background about, like, what your title is, what your job is currently, what you've been doing with nutrition.
Yes. So I am titled or licensed as a registered dietitian nutritionist. So basically what that means is I have my degree in dietetics or nutrition. Specifically, mine is in dietetics. I saw something on Facebook or Instagram, and it was, kind of taken a jab at dietetics majors, and it was saying, we take biochemistry, organic chemistry, anatomy and physiology, cheese tasting, and just, and I think Lauren Morgan sent me a message. She said, cheese tasting, really? And I said, we literally had a food science lab with cheese tasting. We made ricotta cheese, like 4 different ways with all of these like coagulants and different salts and stuff, and we tasted them. And, that's part of like our curriculum, and I'll use that with baking if I'm like, oh man, I forgot to add something. Oh, that's why it turns out this way, whatever.
Right.
So
I clearly got into the wrong degree here.
Yeah, for
sure. I would have loved a cheese tasting class.
Yeah. It was pretty good. No, so my degree is a little bit interesting. It's not necessarily just about fruits and vegetables, but after I did my degree, you have to go and do an internship.
Yeah.
So kind of like nursing, they do an internship, or like their clinicals, or even medical students, they do a residency. So I had to do a matching program for my internship, and I actually got matched in New Orleans at Tulane. So that was really, really neat, in the fact that New Orleans is such a diverse culture and community. So I had 20 plus rotations over 11 months. So I was in community settings, I was in food service settings, I was in hospital settings, like outpatient settings, inpatient, you name it, and I probably did it.
Wow.
So by the time that I was done, I kind of knew what I wanted to do with my degree, my career. And then after the internship, I sat for an exam, passed the exam. Then I was deemed my title registered dietitian.
Okay.
Nutritionist. So now, after I have become, I think I'm almost been a dietitian for a year, actually. I passed my exam September 23rd or 24th last year. So that's kind of cool.
We're two days close to your dietitian birthday.
Yeah, my birthday, yeah. So after that, I got a job earlier this year. It took a little bit to get a job, which kind of was a bummer, but it is what it is. It's just getting the first job is a lot harder than you think.
It's the toughest job, right? The first one.
Yeah. But no, it's good now. I actually work for a cardiologist. He owns a private practice a little bit outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock is the capital of Arkansas. Fun fact.
There you go. Educating on geography here.
Yes. Everybody should know. I'm just kidding. So I work for a cardiologist for a private practice, and they refer any kind of patient to me, usually patients with diabetes, obesity, hypertension, renal disease, or kidney failure. And then I also have a big hand in our intensive cardiac rehab program with the nutrition side. So I do nutrition education lectures basically every day alongside like food that they're served, and I explain to them, whatever we're having. And actually yesterday we did a food demo before I left to come down here. So that was pretty cool. But it's a pretty full-on job with all of the different programs. We're about to start a diabetes program, so helping educate diabetics in the area. And then we actually have a cancer rehab program as well. So anyone that's like not in cancer, that has cancer or has been like 2 years post having been diagnosed, they can come and do our program. And so they exercise every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on Mondays, they have an education lesson. And then Wednesday and Friday, they do stress management. So that's like, we have a clinical or medical yoga therapist. So it's it's a pretty cool program in that aspect, and especially because some of these women have come in and they're, you know, pretty fatigued or depressed, and now they have a group to hang out with, and they're feeling better. You know, so pretty cool. We're doing some interesting stuff at our clinic, and it's pretty small too.
And very multidisciplinary, right? So you have like medicine, you have like exercise, you have nutrition. I mean, you're taking a holistic approach.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's a huge thing. People think, oh, I'm just going to exercise and I'll be fine, or I'll only eat this way and I'll be fine, or whatever you have. But it's just like skiing.
I was going to say.
You can't just work on your gait and expect to run all 6 buoys. Like, you got to work on stuff in the course, you know, whatever. Out of the course, like mental. The whole 9 yards. So it's pretty cool. I'm really enjoying it. And I work for some pretty awesome people.
And see, that's the thing, like, because, you know, we talked about your skiing, and obviously you said, like, we agree it's never one thing, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when you get a certain level where you're trying to break through at a high level, it's never only technique or only equipment or only physical. And I think a lot of skiers that might be listening to this know that it's more than just one thing.
Right.
But my sense, and that's why I really wanted to bring you here, is that I don't see them focusing on nutrition as one of those components, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Like, do you see a lack of attention there?
Yeah, I do. Because I think as water skiers, I think that we can get away with it. You know, we're already good athletes. Maybe we're already naturally in shape, so we don't necessarily have to rely on our nutrition. Where, you know, I've talked to many people that have just made slight improvements, and they're like, man, my energy is so much better. I'm able to work out and ski a couple times in the day, whereas like they weren't able to do both. You know, like that's quite a bit of demand on your body, and then also your energy levels. So I think it's people definitely leave it on the wayside. And of course, like, we're a very social group as water skiers, so you know, like, we went out in Charleston, had great food, you know, great company. And so I think that's something people have to be mindful about that are not usually mindful about that. And it's not that you can't go out and enjoy those things. I think it's just a conscious effort and conscious decision to say, okay, I'm competing, I'm trying to excel in this, I need to really make some adjustments. Yeah. It could be so minor. 10% improvement could equal and yield like 100% improvement, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think definitely, like, something I keep coming back to. I keep reading things in my downtime, and fruits and vegetables, man. Right. They are never going out of style. Yeah, exactly. And if there's one thing we know in nutrition science, or just anything related to nutrition, is that fruits and vegetables are good for you. Right. And they're going to provide you so much energy and nutrients. You know, fiber, like, holy smokes, people don't realize like how important fiber is. Right. Like, it's crazy. I know. And so delicious. Right. And that's kind of like one of the things I guess that I would like for you to help us with is, do you see any common mistakes? And I'm not just talking about like high level skiers, I'm talking about like water skiers in general. Like, do you see any sort of like common mistakes that they do in terms of their nutrition, or maybe their hydration as well? Like some simple things that, you know, some easy changes. Just even starting with hydration, you know, we're around a lake, we are outside, we're primarily like an outdoor sport. Right. I think that's super important, and you don't have to, I think just getting on top of your hydration before you potentially become dehydrated is very, very important. Just paying attention to your urine. I know that maybe is a little TMI, but paying attention to the color and the smell. You don't have to be hitting certain marks, but you can tell, okay, if it's starting to smell a certain way. Shoot, I need to go drink a bottle of water right now and stay out of the sun. Something that I like to utilize, especially on weekends with tournaments, is electrolyte tablets. And you know what, you can pick those up at the grocery, like wherever. I like the Noon tablets because I can like cut them in half and like pop them in a water bottle, chug the water bottle. I'm like, okay, start feel a little bit better. But that's definitely something to keep in mind, and especially because I know we like to drink coffee.
Right. You're talking to the right person here.
And it's not necessarily that coffee is going to dehydrate you, but it actually makes your urine more concentrated, and that's that diuretic effect. So you're just losing your fluids more quickly. It's not necessarily that it's dehydrating you. So if you are someone that is drinking coffee often, just have a glass of water before you have your coffee. Or if you're someone that likes a couple glasses or a couple cups of coffee, drink a glass in between if you know that you're going and you're skiing, or you know that you're being active that day. So that's just a simple solution in that fact. And then moving along to like nutrition, maybe you are like a breakfast person, maybe you aren't, but if you know that you're going out to the lake, you have to have something in your stomach, because that food is our fuel, and that's going to yield you energy to be able to do your sport. And I think a lot of people think they can get away without eating, or they could just have like a muffin or something that's not necessarily going to provide them like the best energy, rather than like just plain as day a piece of whole grain toast with like a little bit of peanut butter on there.
Right.
That whole grain toast is a complex carbohydrate. It's going to give you energy, fiber, that little bit of protein, has some fat or some good fats and some protein. Simple as that. You're going to be able to digest it pretty easily, rather than that muffin with like those refined sugars. You know?
See, that's a very interesting advice there, because in my, I guess, simplistic brain, those are very similar ways of having breakfast. But then if you break it down to the macronutrients, it's a completely different breakfast, right?
Right. And they might take the exact same amount of time.
Right.
Right. Like literally 5 minutes for each. Even if that muffin is coming out of your pantry, by the time you open it up, like peel the thing off and then like eat it, or you pop one piece of toast in the toaster
right,
and then slab it on there, you're like, 5 minutes, sure, like there's a little bit more convenience for a muffin or a Pop-Tart or whatever. But I think just trying to be more detailed in choices can make such a big difference. And that was an example that was pretty not so complex or so complicated that it's not obtainable to the average person, to the average, like anybody,
right.
Athlete, high end, low end, anywhere, that's not something that like my little brother could do that. He's like,
right.
Yeah, I don't even like peanut butter though.
Well, we'll try with some other nut butter.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I think a lot of people, like a lot of skiers out there, are very concerned with timing, right? So like, of course, our sport is a bit weird in the sense that you have to ski. So like tomorrow we have to ski. So
right.
we're going to look at the running order and guesstimate when we're skiing.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
So like, what is your general advice in terms of like how soon you should eat before, say, a skiing performance, which is generally, 7 minutes, 6 minutes?
Yeah. So just some like general sports nutrition is having a good source of carbohydrates, and that could just be as simple as an orange.
Right.
You just have an orange, and that's also going to be hydrating. That orange is like probably pretty dang juicy. Maybe you get one that's not so juicy.
Right.
You never know. Maybe you're in Florida and you're good.
Right. Exactly.
That could be pretty simple, just making sure that you have something in your stomach, but most importantly, you want to have something that's easy to digest. So maybe like tomorrow, for example, that you're going to ski at 11.
Okay.
and you're like, oh, but I really want to have like a big old breakfast at 9. Well, do you think from 9 to 11 that breakfast is going to be digested? Or rather, like, should you have maybe like break up your breakfast into like having a little bit smaller, and then maybe a snack, like maybe have kind of like a snack at 9 and then a snack at 10, and then by 11, like your energy has been sustained through those couple hours and you're good to go. Like you don't feel heavy, you've
Right.
digested on those terms, because you still want that energy to be able to perform.
Right.
But you don't want to be working so hard. So this is kind of cool, and I want you guys, like, well, as listeners, and even you, Matteo, but I want you to notice something whenever you eat. Within like 10, 20, 30 minutes, put your hands on your stomach after you've eaten, and if your stomach is feeling warm, that's your body's digestive system. So
Right.
basically what that is all of the blood has gone to your stomach, your intestines, to help with that digestion process. But if your digestion is taking too long, right? And
Right.
if it's not within that 30-minute window or whatever, it's taking like up to 45 an hour, well, that blood is still going to be working hard digesting. Well, when we ski, we need our blood in our muscles.
Right.
We need them in our liver and our kidney. You know, like we need them in our lungs. Like we don't need blood in our lungs, but we need blood in different parts of our body rather than working on our digestion. So I
Right.
think that's something really important, just as like a general sports nutrition side, is to make sure that we're having something easy to digest, but have sustainable energy.
Okay. And is there, because I know there are the individual differences, obviously, but is there some like more like macronutrients or general foods that take longer to digest than others? Like any advice there?
Yep. So carbohydrates digest the easiest, proteins, and then fat.
Right.
So that's where the keto thing comes in,
Oh,
right?
right.
Yeah. So just kind of like segueing into that, that's why keto works for certain people,
Mhm.
because you eat like a pretty hefty, like maybe fat, heavy meal, and your digestion takes a long time, so your hunger is curbed for a long time.
Right.
That's where that comes into play.
I see.
And so it works better for certain people. Like I prefer to eat every couple hours, so my source of energy is going to be the carbohydrates, because
Right.
you're going to get energy from the carbohydrates or the fat.
Yeah.
Is kind of where that comes from, which,
Yeah.
and I'm, all that, the
No.
fun stuff.
Right. No, it's interesting that you bring that up, because obviously as we were talking, and I know we're trying to educate here, but I was also thinking about what to eat tomorrow for breakfast. And
Yeah.
and generally my breakfast is just eggs,
Right.
But at the same time, because I do work as well, I don't get to ski in the morning, so I never get a chance to test eggs, ski, how much time should I have in the middle.
Right.
So
right.
my question for you is, how early should I wake up tomorrow?
And that's that is a good question. Don't wake up too early.
Okay, I will.
Okay. And that's something you have to play with. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
And like I said, I prefer carbohydrates as my source of energy, and you prefer fat, or maybe it's like, for example, low carb, high fat, or high fat, low carb, if you want to kind of like put it in different terms. So it just depends, and you really have to play with it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your digestion is going to be better. Sometimes you're just going to be able to burn easier. That's just definitely something to play with.
Mhm.
But it is hard if you're working and you don't necessarily ski early in the morning.
Yeah.
But maybe that's like an early season.
Yeah. Test.
Yeah, test it out.
So I'll tell you. Okay. So I'll tell you what I've been working on, and then you tell me if it's a good strategy tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
So, as you know, a lot of endurance athletes have been going to the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
But for anaerobic sports like ours,
Mm-hmm.
like I know that like some MMA fighters are testing it, and I've heard the two general approaches with it are either cyclical ketogenesis, so
Mhm.
like they get off every three days, or they carb up just before performance. And I've been playing with the second option. So, and by carb up, I mean I have a handful of blueberries, which
Yeah.
for me it's like sugar to the roof,
Right. Right.
and it's been working all right. It's
Okay.
been working all right. So I wonder, do you think I should maybe try that tomorrow for breakfast, or is it not gonna be too like? Is it not gonna last enough?
No, I think that would be a good idea. I think, the motto that they go off of is train low, compete high. And that's in terms of carbohydrates. And I think that because you have depleted your body of those sugars, glucose, basically the glycogen, what it turns into, whenever you receive blueberries, it is like, man, it shoots fire, and you're like utilizing it like nobody's business. So I do think that is a good way to be able to shift it. And there's also like carb cycling on the other end. Like you can cycle with ketosis and you can cycle with carbohydrates. So there's definitely ways to like optimize. But yeah, I would definitely try your blueberries tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Or if you have strawberries, I don't know, whatever you want.
Well, we'll go to the supermarket after this and see what I can find. And one of the things that obviously, I'm guessing you're going to agree with this, but I guess what we can say to the listeners is if you're trying a certain, like there's a difference between making simple changes in your nutrition that, are going to be healthier or easier, or to undergo a certain style of eating. Like, and I guess the advice there would be don't do it by yourself, right?
Yeah. So for example, like whenever I was younger, I didn't really know like all that much about nutrition. Say like when I was in high school, right? I was just doing research on my own, and I was eating paleo, and so I didn't really know what paleo was, but I was like having these paleo muffins, and like making all these paleo treats, and then realizing like afterwards, I was like, maybe that wasn't necessarily like the 100% best way to do it. And I kind of burn out on it, right? It wasn't something I could do every single day. But at the time I wasn't as educated and didn't really understand like what that looked like. So now whenever I talk to clients, usually it's a heart patient. So we really talk about salt a lot. Unfortunately in South Louisiana or even in, Florida, Arkansas, your food needs to have some salt on it, like it's got to taste good. So whenever I tell my clients, hey, we got to make these changes, I ask them, do you think that you can make this change? Because if they cannot make that change, we have to find a solution. And that's kind of like where I'm going with this. Like, if you don't think you're going to be able to sustain that change, like if you're someone that wants to go and do keto, if you think, okay, I can do that for 2 weeks, cool, you can do it for 2 weeks, but can you do it for a year? Can you do that for the rest of your life? That's something that you have to think about. Like, you have to have a sustainable way of eating. If not, you're going to go back to what you know, and maybe like you're someone that maybe is trying to lose weight, or you're maybe trying to look for athletic performance. But there's tons of research that shows, especially in weight loss, that 90% of people that lose weight will gain it back. Which is like nuts to me, because I'm like, man, all these people are working so hard, they like lose this weight, and then 90% of them, they gain it back. Well, if they would have maybe started with something that was sustainable, and maybe they just made small changes rather than like a drastic thing, or like something that they maybe couldn't have done before, maybe they would have lost the weight and kept it off.
And I think that's where the, I almost think like the big changes are easier to understand than the small changes. You see what I mean? So like
you want the instant gratification. If I do these big changes, I know that this will happen. And and I think though that, and we do know that sustainable small changes progressively work better, both physically and psychologically, because then you get the reward, and then you continue to do the same thing. But I think that the small changes need to be informed by a professional, by someone that knows what those changes ought to be. So for all of you guys out there that are listening to this, if you are planning on making those small changes in terms of like getting like a bigger result, first thing to do is to look for a professional. In terms of looking for a nutrition professional, making sure that they have registered dietitian.
Okay.
So this is something that make sure that they have had proper education, proper like practice
Yep.
with clients and with patients. So a dietitian can call themselves a nutritionist. A nutritionist cannot call themselves a dietitian. So that's kind of making that one a little bit more simple and clear as far as that. But definitely searching for and there's another one that I can't remember, but I can get that to you. So look for a registered dietitian, or it's like certified something. I don't know. I'll get that one to you.
We'll look it up. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, there's only two that are really the more qualified. Not that a nutritionist isn't, but they can go take an online test or whatever and be a nutritionist in an hour.
Right.
Whereas we have spent a degree and an internship, possibly a master's or a doctorate or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And especially because the dietitian has been trained in not only like the clinical side, but also some of the psychology, of the behavioral changes.
Yeah.
Making those, like you're saying, like making the small changes, because some of these people, that's what they need. So.
Yeah, and I think it's psychologically or behaviorally, it's a hard change to do, right? Like you eat let's say the vast majority of people eat 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
For every day, right?
Yeah.
So making a small
21 meals a week.
Right?
Right? Is that the right math?
Yeah, that's a good math.
Okay.
I'm not going to do it times 365 for you, but it's a lot of meals.
Yeah, it's a lot of meals.
So making even just a small change requires a certain degree of effort.
Yep.
And so you kind of want to make sure that effort goes towards changes that make sense. So that's why I really suggest to have a professional like yourself or someone else if they do want to make those changes.
Right. Yeah. And so my biggest one that I keep going back to with really a lot of people is if you just include produce at every meal. So whether that's fruit or vegetables, like breakfast, it makes a little bit more sense to have fruit, or maybe like if you make an omelet, like throw in like different veggies or whatever you have, and then lunch, make sure that you have a serving of vegetables, maybe even fruit, and then dinner, same thing. Like that's something that you might already be doing, but you're not paying attention to. And then you get to the end of the day, dang, I've not had any of that. And that can be a very simple change that doesn't require that much effort as well, because it might be something you're doing, but not 3 meals out of the day.
Right. Right. You just say, I'll have it in the evening when I can have time to cook. Yeah,
exactly. So.
And just for, there's a lot of people like the two of us and others that might be listening who have a professional life, who might not be able to cook all the time, right? And in terms of vegetables and fruits, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on frozen, right? Because I see a lot of people like bashing on it. Some people say, hey, better frozen than nothing. What is your take on that? Yeah.
So the options of fruits and vegetables is fresh, frozen, or canned. So fresh is like, that's going to be your best option if it's available, right?
Right.
But frozen is actually pretty cool because they are picking the fruits and the vegetables at the peak of ripeness, flash freezing it or flash processing it, however, and they're not losing any nutrients on that. And it's actually cheaper to buy frozen fruits and vegetables, and it's going to be something that is not going to go bad. How many times have you looked in your drawer, your crisper drawer, and you're like, dang, that's gone bad. It might have been like just some lettuce or something. You're
some celery just curved in, like it shouldn't be curved. Yeah.
And you're like, dang it. So if you were to have, I mean, I guess you don't really buy like frozen celery, but if we did have frozen celery, that would be a great example to make sure that you're not food waste either, like making sure that you're not wasting food. So I think frozen fruits and vegetables are great. And there's a time and a place for them, you know.
Right.
That's definitely. And the same thing with canned fruits and vegetables. Like if you get canned fruits, always try to get them either in water or in their own syrups, not in like a sugary syrup.
Right.
And then same thing with the vegetables, making sure that there's no salt added because they are preserved in quite a lot of salt, and so making sure that you rinse them pretty well.
Right.
But those are all good options. You know, everybody's budget's going to look different. Everyone's day, like you said, is going to look different. If having frozen or canned is going to be easier for like you having maybe a more well-rounded balanced meal, then shoot, go for it. Yeah. I'm okay with all those things.
Okay, yeah. So it's like one of those things, like if you can have fresh, if not, go for frozen. If not, go for canned.
Right.
But make sure you have your veggies, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. You're not losing any nutrients on the frozen. You're maybe losing a bit more on the canned just because of it's leaking through whatever fluids that it's sitting in or liquids.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Well, we'll be running for a while. Any final thoughts? Anything that you want our listeners to know?
Eat your fruits and veggies.
There you go. Okay. So if you're learning anything about this, make sure that you have fruits and veggies on your table at least 3 times a day, right?
Yeah.
At least 3 times a day.
For sure.
Well, Britt, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Matteo.
Hopefully I can get you back, some other time. We'll maybe dive even a little bit deeper. Maybe some listeners will have questions, and hopefully we can address them.
Shoot them my way.
Okay, we'll do. Thanks a lot.
Alrighty.
Boom. Boom.